Hey everybody, welcome back to my traffic engineering YouTube channel. I am a traffic engineer for HNTB. I've been with the company for about 5.5 years now. Freshly licensed PE in the states of Texas and Colorado. And I'm also happy to say I have made it to the other side of the daunting failing statistic for the RSP2 ITE certification, which is what we're going to be talking about today. Pulled up here, I just have the exam statistics. This is a relatively new exam that just came out in 2019 and has been under kind of continual development. But compared to the RSP1, the RSP2 has a very high fail rate. It's about 1 in 2 people don't pass this exam, which, in my opinion, is pretty high for people who are taking it. Today, we'll just be talking a little bit about the exam itself, what you can do to better prepare yourself to give yourself the best possible shot. Everyone here probably by now has taken the RSP1 exam or is in the process of it and looking to take the RSP2. The RSP2 builds off of the RSP1 exam. Passing the RSP1 is a requirement. Before taking the RSP2, go check out my other video for that certification exam. You can take both exams on the same day if you so choose. So you can sign up for both if you do qualify for the level 2. The main qualification for the level 2 is a bachelor's degree in a related field, and then 5 to 10 years minimum of experience in transportation, highway safety, or public health. So I've got over 5 years now between roadway design and traffic engineering, a majority of which has been safety and operations focused. So I had no problem kind of meeting that application requirement. The two different options are the behavioral and the infrastructure. I took the infrastructure exam with no plans of taking the behavioral. I have no opinion on which of the two is easier. I would lean infrastructure if you've got an engineering background. It does not look like there's very many behavioral people that have taken the exam yet. As far as the actual content, very similar to the RSP1 exam. It's only 3 hours and 75 questions. Only 72 or 73 are scored. The other ones are just experimental questions that they're seeing if they can use in their scoring. I think on my test, I had the same question 3 times with slightly different numbers. So I'm pretty sure I know which one wasn't scored. Or they just gave slightly different variables or something. But I had the same question like 3 times, and I'm pretty sure that was their test question. But again, the main difference is now you get qualitative and quantitative questions, whereas the RSP1 was strictly quantitative. Now, not to worry here because the equation questions are not that difficult, and we get a nice, handy equation sheet here. This one's got about 8 equations on it. I think the one provided on the exam actually gives 11 equations, if I'm remembering correctly. But anytime you should need to use one of these, it will pop up on the exam. And these equations really are not very difficult, where you should have a general idea of what the question's asking, and it will show you right. You can find the exact equation that you need to use. So don't worry about the equations too much on this exam. Some of the different domains in this exam, there's going to be a lot of overlap compared to the RSP1 exam. There's a couple of different domains. Domain 1 is fundamentals. There's a road safety management domain. There's an acquiring and using safety data domain, a crash prediction and trend interpretation domain, and then a target crashes and countermeasure domain. So all of these tasks are covered in various sources in our profession, the HSM being one. The CMF clearinghouse is another one that's really heavily involved. I don't think you need to necessarily source these references yourself, as long as you're generally familiar with what's in them and you've used them in your day-to-day. You generally should have an idea of what is in the reference material. My next point I just want to get into is I did take the full refresher course. As an ITE member, for me, it was only about $200. It was not reimbursed by my company. Neither was a certification fee, but again, a small kind of price to pay for making sure I passed it the first time. But I completed the whole course. There's about 90-minute videos for each module, and each module goes through every specific task and domain that's listed here. So you get a great understanding of what is going to be on the exam. Kind of the shortcomings of this class is they don't present any information in like a question format of how it might appear. They just kind of throw a bunch of information at you and say, "Here you go," kind of figure it out. They also don't go into any of the quantitative question details. So all these equations they do not touch on whatsoever. They may discuss brief use cases of them, but there's no example problems or anything of the sort. There's also no way to use. They don't show how to like use the clearinghouse, apply a CMF, or kind of anything of that nature. So there is some shortcomings, but as long as you do kind of some predictive safety and have a stake in safety in your day-to-day work, you really shouldn't be too displaced when taking this exam. My number one tip of what you should be familiar with, just of all of this stuff that I saw as a repeated topic, is I had many different use case scenarios of when you use observed crashes, when you use predicted crashes, when you can use expected crashes. A good chunk of my exam was that question for multiple scenarios, just kind of asked in different ways. So that's something that you really need to know of all of this information. My cat is behind my monitor, knocking the camera here. So now we talked about the refresher course. Back to the equations. Like I said, there's a couple more added, but nothing in here is too difficult. You should be also familiar with how to pick a CMF from the CMF clearinghouse based on different attributes of your roadway. So just keep that in mind. Kind of going over the scoring method. So I have my scoring sheet from this exam. I didn't do as well on this one as I did the RSP1 exam. So I was right in the low 60s for total percentage, which, you know, wasn't awful. I thought I did better than that, but again, the exam was kind of hard. However, the examination scoring kind of says that, you know, there's no penalty for guessing. The exam is supposed to be challenging, and it's scored with the Angoff modified technique, which I'm not entirely sure what it is, but it essentially creates a passing score based on the difficulty of the exam problems, and if you're within like one standard deviation of that score, you pass. So got good news with that passing result. And if you're comfortable with your results, you should have a pretty good grasp on being able to pass. The last couple things I just want to touch on quickly, so this video doesn't drag on, is how to know when you pass. I touched on this very briefly in my RSP1 video, but now I'm going to actually look it up. So the ITE has a certification lookup feature where you can just actually type in your last name. So if I just type in my last name and go to just hit search, my one ITE member was found will pop up, and then I can view the information for myself. And if I look, it's going to say, here's my initials of RSP2. I'm not sure what the rest of this is. Year 2 ITE. I have no idea. But your name will pop up with this new certification once you're added into the directory. And also one other thing to note, if you're currently registered as an RSP1, your name will disappear from this list about 10 days before the actual exam results come out. So I noticed that my RSP1 certification was actually delisted for about 10 days before I got the passing notification. So the stripping of the RSP1 was about 10 days before the appearance of the RSP2 certification. When I looked it up, was about 3 days before, and then the final email of "oh, you passed" came about 3 days after I was searchable in the directory. So this is the place to check if you're looking for if you passed. Typical results 6 to 8 weeks after the last day. It comes really a lot quicker than that. It's typically like 3 weeks. I think both of mine have been less than 15 business days. So pretty quick. Sign up for a test at the end of your testing month if you can. One other thing to check is when you come on here, it also gives you an RSP2 designation. So this will also appear before you get the official passing notification. Couple other things, you'll get your certification and score results in the mail, typically about 2 weeks after you get the passing notifications. And now we are on to the continuing education requirements, which are quite lofty for this RSP certification, 45 hours. And the requirements, I believe, are listed actually on one of these sheets, are within a safety domain. So a lot of PDH hours that need to be accumulated in the next 3 years of the renewal period. Please let me know if you have specific questions, either on exam content, stuff you should study. I can't give too much information on specific questions, unfortunately, just due to the ITE policy. But I'm happy to help with any other sort of questions or as you prepare for the exam. I've only got one exam left, which is the PTOE I'm taking in 2 months in October. Also reach out if you're interested in connecting with me before taking that exam yourself. Have a good day and good luck if you are taking this exam in the future.